What's up, guys, and welcome to the Oakcliff YouTube channel. We hope you guys are all staying safe, keeping yourselves entertained and productive out there. We're trying to do the same here in the Oakcliff bubble, and since we live where we work, we're working from home. And we're also going to bring you a new YouTube video series teaching you guys how to do random things that we know. Some boat related, some not. So today, I'm going to teach you how to make Italian bread, and tomorrow, or I guess only later in this video, Dawn is going to teach you guys how to make the famous Dawnwich. So, for this recipe, we're going to need bread flour. You can pick any brand you want. This is Pillsbury. King Arthur is also very good. We're going to need salt, olive oil. The recipe called for brown sugar, but I mistook this for brown sugar. It's actually cane sugar, but it came out really good, so I'm going to keep using it. Fleischmann's active dry yeast. And then for the sesame topping, you're going to need 1 egg for the egg white and some sesame seeds here. So, let's get to it. First thing, we're going to add some sugar to the water and then add the yeast to proof in the water. You can see here that the yeast is rising. It's creating those little bubbles. We've got our flour here. We're going to add the olive oil to the water and then mix it all together in the flour. And one more thing, you want to add the salt to the flour before you add the water with the sugar, yeast, and olive oil. You can see that there's a little bit of flour left at the bottom, and that's okay because some more flour is going to get added to the mixture during the kneading process as you add flour to the board in your hands to keep it from sticking. Okay, now comes probably the hardest part of the whole process, which is kneading. Now let me preface this by saying I'm not an expert. I've just been quarantined for a month and have the internet, and this is how the girl on the internet said to do it. So I'm going to start with the heel of my palm, get some flour on my hands, and just press gently down, not fully flattening it out to the board, but also putting enough pressure in it so that I'm gonna see some of this what at first looks like tearing, but it's really strands of gluten forming. And also you'll probably notice that this is a pretty big piece of dough. Yours is going to be smaller because this is a double batch, making 2 loaves. In fact, I should separate them sooner rather than later. So let me get a knife. Okay. So I rolled up the dough and I was kneading in this direction. So now I'm going to turn it 90 and start kneading in this direction. Now I'm just going to form a ball by pressing in and scooping under and rotating. Okay, so now you have a nice piece of dough. What we're going to do next is coat the surface of the dough in oil, coat a bowl with oil, give it enough room so that it can expand to twice its size, put a warm, damp rag over it, and let it rise for an hour, which should give it roughly twice the size when you come back. Okay. Now we leave it for an hour. It should be about doubled in size. Then we're gonna knead it again and let it rise for another hour. Then we shape it, another half hour, throw it in the oven. Okay, it's been an hour. The dough has nicely doubled. You can see it has a really springy, marshmallow-like consistency to it, but there's still tension and structure to the surface there. You can even see here is a large kind of bubble. And we're just gonna break the seal on all the edges and plop it out onto a well-floured surface. Okay, we're gonna punch it down. And I like to kind of press from the outside. That wasn't a Corona cough. I just went for a run, I swear. Okay, and then just gonna roll it up like before when I was kneading it. And we're gonna knead it for just a few minutes here, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And then we're gonna get it back into that ball-like shape by pressing it together, scooping, press, scoop. Now it's really got a lot of structure to it, so to get it back to that, to be all kind of one piece, and to get rid of creases like that, you really have to squeeze. Okay, and then you kind of focus on the scooping to really give it that round structure. I just shooed the cow away from the bread. I just took the bread out and punched it down. I didn't do another knead. Now I'm molding it. So I want it to have kind of pointed ends. So I'm just gonna taper in as I press the bread with this scooping motion again. And it can be really hard to get a symmetrical loaf. Nice and kind of straight without like a sag, but you want to give it a good stretch. Kind of really work the dough and pull out those thicker sections so that you don't get that. Okay, and that's a bit long for a loaf of Italian, so we're just gonna bring it back. You can see it's still not symmetrical, but okay, I just removed the oiled plastic. You can see it's, you can see it's a little bit larger now. If I press down, you can see it has that marshmallow-like consistency. So now we get to do the finishing touches. I have our beaten egg white here, which we're just gonna paint on. And the final touch, you're gonna create the cuts in the top. You can do it however you want. What I've been liking recently is just a single cut right down the middle. You want to go about 1/2 inch deep. And this is all aesthetic. This isn't going to change the quality of the bread. And apparently the origin of cuts in the top of bread comes from back in the day when they would only have one oven per town, and everybody would go put their bread in the oven and they would make different cuts so they knew which bread was theirs. Bread's all ready to go in. We put the egg white on top, sprinkled it with sesame seeds. You can tell I kind of messed up the shape a little bit, but then I put the cut in the middle and something edible will come out. We'll see. Oh, and the pan in there, I just put in when I start preheating the oven. It gets the oven nice and hydrated. I usually do that for the first 15 to 20 minutes, then take it out and let it kind of crust over. If you don't hydrate your oven, then it'll crust over early and you'll get bread that's too dense. If you're really fancy, you can cycle it. put the pan in every 5 minutes and take it out every 5. But I don't know people that actually do that at home. Professional ovens have steam cycles that will do that automatically. But usually it's good enough just to let the dough initially expand by hydrating the oven, and then let it get nice and crunchy for the rest of the time.
Okay, so normally I do this all at home and I'm fully prepared at least the night before, if not 2 nights before. And often the inspiration just comes from what's in the refrigerator. In this case, in the world of coronavirus, it was pretty slim pickings, but I came up with a little bit of a pork sandwich. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this over here in the heated pan. We're going to sear it. I would normally do it on a barbecue at home and then chill it out, but for right now, for these purposes, I'm going to just make it like we're on TV. Also, I wash my hands a lot, all the time, even before coronavirus. I live in fear of poisoning all of the umpires at Oakcliff. So the marinade was basically, I was starting off with like a barbecue, I wasn't sure what, because I knew I had the cabbage that I pulled out from my garden that's still growing from last year. I saw this rather sad apple downstairs and some coleslaw dressing. So I was like, okay, we got a coleslaw pork thing going. So I started off with some teriyaki and some hoisin sauce. And then I was like, okay, that's gonna be fine, but there's this barbecue sauce that I really don't like at all, but it has like a little bit of a bitter taste, and I think that's gonna balance nicely with the somewhat sweet of this sauce. So we got all of that in there. That is going along and searing. I'd like to have it as hot as possible. Actually, what we're gonna do is we're gonna sharpen this a little bit. I like to have it as hot as possible so it's really hot on the outside. People are really afraid of pork, and normally I'd be composting it at home. People are afraid of pork, but if you overcook pork, it's like eating shoe leather. So it's a fine balance of making sure that it's cooked as nicely as possible, hot on the outside, just a little bit of pink on the inside. Okay, so this, I was gonna put in the salad, but you know what? I think I'm gonna throw this in with the pork since I'm doing it on the stove as opposed to on the barbecue. So I'm gonna throw that in there. Then we're going to cut the apples. So I'll have some apple slices. And of course, usually I get the bread delivered from Cardinelli's, but that's not happening today. So we had Francis make some, as you saw, or will see. Believe it or not, I'm going to save the outside to take home with me and do some kind of a, I don't know, sausage cabbage roll, something. And this is just really, really simple. Is making a nice slaw. Needs to really get hard and crusty on the outside. So we want to keep it now, coleslaw dressing, we don't know how old it is. It's been in the Oakcliff fridge. We're just going to do a little dip in there. You know, one thing on the coleslaw is I usually, you don't think about it, but cabbage will absorb. If I could, I would have made this the night before. And I'm gonna guarantee you that it's going to need a little bit of salt and pepper. Barbecue sauce with that little bit of bitter, I'm gonna go a little heavier on the pepper than I normally would. And in honor of Tim Kent, we'll add some salt. So I've added a little bit of water just to deglaze the pan because again, usually I would do this on the barbecue. And I'm just waiting for this side to get as firm as this side. So we talked about you don't want it like shoe leather. So this side is probably a little bit extra done, but if you press right there, it's just a little bit too springy. And we're going to just let it cook for a few more minutes, and then we're going to take it out. We're going to let it rest for probably another 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so let's see what Francis is doing. This is a beauty. I don't even know which way to cut this one. The cutting board's too small. We're going to get this sorted out here. And we're going to pretend this is a baguette. So we're just going to cut halfway through and we're going to stuff it. One thing is, as those of you that know when I make sandwiches, I almost always have cream cheese on it, and that's because I'm making them to go out on the water, and I don't want the gooey good stuff to make the bread bad. So usually I coat it with some cream cheese. For this one, we're going to use butter. It's just an oil to try to protect the bread. Man, does this look beautiful. So we now have the pork. It's rested a little bit. We're going to take it out of the pan, and we're going to scrape some of this. I'm not sure if we're going to use it or not. Might have to taste that, but let's just save those good bits. And acorns and saplings, rinse the pan right away. Life lesson, top tip. Okay, so then we're going to use the good knife, and we're going to just slice a little bit here. That's done well. Okay, there we go. So that's just a little tiny bit of pink. We're going to let it rest just a couple more minutes because that will go away. On the assembly, what we want to do is we want to take the pork and we put it in on one side. It's all about keeping the bread fresh. And this bread, I can't tell you how beautiful it actually is. And we're going to slide that in there, slide that in there. Sometimes if I'm feeling generous, I put a lot more in. Other times, not so much. And then this is the second type of, our second moistness. We're going to shove a lot of apples in. And apples, this one is not super fresh because we got it out of the refrigerator. So we're going to put a few more in there. And then we're simply going to take the coleslaw and shove the crap out of it. Now this, of course, isn't a baguette, so it's going to be a little bit different. But we're going to shove it together. I'm going to set this over here because we're not using that. This would be for the next sandwich or for my whole thing. Put it all in together. A little more of this if we can. What I normally would do, have this long baguette, and then I would just slice it into fives. And the trick is to look at it once it's cut and make sure there's enough good gooiness in there. So we're gonna let Francis take a bite of this, and it's gonna be messy. But come over here, Francis. Tell me what you think.
All right, first Dawnwich of the season.
Pretty good. And that's why we have, that's why we wash the boats down after we've done the racing.
Messy and amazing. Wow. Well, thanks, Dawn.
Thank you. Thanks for making the bread.
This is what you can get if you come volunteer during a regatta.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed that video and can find some fun stuff to do with what you find in your fridge during this quarantine. Check out the rest of our Cocktail Breeze series every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 5:30 p.m. EDT. We're going to premiere a new video teaching you guys how to do some sailing skill or something you can do at home during the quarantine. Also, don't forget to check out the Weekend Workshop series. This is a bit more formal, and we're going to have industry professionals teaching on topics of their expertise. This weekend, we have a free one. It's going to be a Zoom meeting with a live Q&A with some short-handed sailors from over in Europe. We're probably going to have a mini sailor, a Class 40 sailor, and an AMOCA sailor. So if you're interested in that, then sign up with the details below. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our page on Facebook. Thanks again for watching, guys.